It isn't a secret that I really love the series One Piece. I've even ended up launching a standalone YouTube channel where I talk exclusively about the series. Personally, I'm not the type to try and make content out of hating on something. I only really like talking about stuff if I'm genuinely passionate about it. And to be honest, nothing drains my passion more than anime live action adaptations. So after having seen the teaser trailer and the full trailer about 10 or so times, because I was kind of in disbelief as to what I was looking at, and I was trying to make sense of just why is there so much hype about this One Piece live action, because what I was looking at on screen was not impressive in my opinion, and to summarize my thoughts, I wasn't happy by what I'd seen in the trailers. Then after having seen several reactions of One Piece YouTubers speaking about the trailer, giving their thoughts on it, I made this tweet saying that I feel suspicious about a lot of One Piece YouTubers pushing this narrative that the showrunners of live action One Piece have a deep love for One Piece. Obviously, while YouTubers were reacting to the live action One Piece trailers, they'd stated examples of several Easter eggs within the actual material, but we know that some One Piece creators have actually been involved with the production of the show and have helped the showrunners to include these references into the series. Like the One Piece creator Library of O'Hara, who had announced that he was able to contribute to the production of the One Piece live action with reference content for the script writing process, including a lot of lore stuff, Easter eggs, and timeline dates. So when I see like One Piece YouTubers react to the trailers, talk about Easter eggs, and various bits of small trivia that have been included in the live action, I just think that a lot of these One Piece content creators have been reached out to by Netflix, whether if they've been involved within the script writing process or actively have had a lot of their suggestions and Easter eggs included within the live action. I don't think they've had much of a huge role within actually writing out the episodes, but more so including these small bits of trivia that are really gonna get the attention of fans, to be honest with you. But because of this, I believe that there is a conflict of interest. So we can't totally trust the opinions of One Piece YouTubers who are reacting to these live action One Piece trailers. And in addition to this, they're constantly prefacing that this isn't a one-to-one adaptation of the manga. Now, this is all fine and well, but by asking the question, do you want the live action to just be like the manga, it's gonna inherit a response of, well, yes we do. There's a lot of qualities about the original work that fans resonate with. I mean, the manga has universal writing and themes that had made it great. Now, if the live action falls short of what was included within the manga, then why are they even calling it One Piece to begin with? And most importantly, what's the point of actually creating this live action series? If they have in fact created a story that's been inspired from One Piece, but it doesn't necessarily carry forward everything from the actual source material, then why even call it One Piece? I mean, you could just call it Generic Pirate Story Volume 1 and be done with it. So what I want to do in this video is to actually just take a step back from everything. I want to look at the trailers and the teaser trailer that was released, speak about things that I like about the trailers, things that I don't like about the trailers, and then we'll go over what Oda has to say about the One Piece live action before moving on to my personal past experience with anime live action stuff. And then I'm going to delve deeper into the showrunner for the One Piece live action, Matt Owens, and the studio behind this Netflix anime adaptation, Tomorrow Studios, as well as talking about their past work which was universally panned, the Cowboy Bebop Netflix live action adaptation. So there's quite a bit to dive into in this video, and without further delay, this is my comprehensive breakdown of everything about the One Piece Netflix live action adaptation. So I want to start by looking at the official teaser trailer that was released on the 17th of June, and this was our first real look at the live action One Piece series. The trailer begins showing us Fuchsia Village, which is the first setting of the Romance Dawn arc where the story of One Piece begins. We see the back of the Going Merry ship, and I've got a lot of issues with how this ship looks like. If you want my summarized opinion, I think it looks cursed. I shared a tweet about it back when the key visual for the live action was released, and yeah, I mean, they literally massacred my boy. I think this is what I would have preferred, to be honest, so I tweeted here that they didn't have to transform the Going Merry into this 3D photorealistic horror fest. I mean, why couldn't they have just adapted it like this instead? So of course on the right you've got how the Going Merry is depicted within the manga and the anime, and on the left we've got more of a cartoony live action adaptation of the Going Merry, which allowed fans to buy tickets to this amusement event where you could hop on board the Going Merry and explore the vessel of the Straw Hat Pirates. But I'm sure that this was like 12 or 13 years ago now, and following this I think they had a similar attraction for the Sunny Go, where they had built a real life version of the ship for fans to explore. But yeah, aside from the going merry, the trailer continues. We hear Luffy speaking about ever since he was a kid he had wanted to become the king of the pirates, and we get our first look at Luffy, who of course is portrayed by Inaki Godoy. I mean, as far as Luffy goes, he looks like the character, but I can't shake the feeling that he looks like he would fit right amongst the crowd of Anime Expo, because visually speaking, when you just translate this cartoony One Piece story into live action, the characters are just gonna look like they're cosplaying. I think it's difficult with live action works like this, because I'm sure that the team behind the One Piece live action are struggling with what to take directly from the manga, which will translate well into real life, and what they're gonna have to take some creative liberties on. And a lot of the costumes, I'm afraid, just look like they're cosplay, to be honest with you. I mean, as far as set design goes, things look quite impressive. I mean, with things like this, they're really capturing the scale of the world. But this shot here, it just literally looks like somebody who sat on the floor at Anime Expo eating their lunch, and they've been green screened out of it and put onto this One Piece background. Then we get to see this marine base, which honestly looks fairly okay in my opinion. Then we get our first look at Zoro, who again honestly just looks like he's wearing cosplay. And of course, Luffy meeting Zoro with a big portrait of Axe-Hand Morgan in the background. Shots like this, they look so cringy, man. Like, it doesn't look good in live action. Like, regardless of like all of the details I'm gonna go into later on in the video, when I look at it put into action, I can't justify how this looks. I mean, is this a $100 million production? I will say one thing though, Zoro probably looks the best out of all of the Straw Hats. The trailer then reveals the ship of Shanks, Red Force, and you'll note that a lot of the scenes within this trailer are very dimly lit, or they're taking place in like sunset or in the evening. You could say that it's playing upon the title Romance Dawn, with the sun rising or the dawn of Luffy's live action adventure. I mean, yeah, these shots of like Zoro fighting, again, very cosplay-y. The fighting choreography looks fine, the camera work did look nice here, to be honest with you. Then we get our first reveal of Nami, who is played by Emily Rudd, who is another self-proclaimed One Piece fan. And honestly, I think a lot of the cast and the showrunner and the crew who are working on the One Piece live action are fans of the series, but it's a totally different thing for this to be translated into the work. Even in this shot here, it looks like Nami is wearing a wig. It just doesn't give that very convincing look. Then we get a look at the sea beast that had bitten off Shanks' arm. Honestly, the CG doesn't look really good here. I mean, as far as resemblance goes, it looks like the Sea King that had appeared within the manga and the anime, but it just looks really janky in this entire shot. And the same is true for Alvida's ship here. Oh my god. Okay, now this is what I really disliked and really turned me off of the entire teaser trailer, and it's the look that they've given to Buggy. So this is how Buggy looks during the East Blue arc within the anime. He hasn't got this like horror Joker look to him. He just looks like this really goofy guy wearing clown makeup. But instead, the live action One Piece trailer went with this like Pennywise the Clown, Joker, Dark Knight look, really making Buggy out to be some sort of a horror villain, which of course we know is so far from the truth. Now, I don't know how this character is actually going to be portrayed or how he's going to be acted on, but from this scene alone within the teaser trailer, it's not a good look. Then following this, we've got some interactions between the Straw Hats, and I want to talk about this after the trailer ends. Personally, I'm not a big fan of some of the dialogue that was used within the teaser. It just gives me like this really cringy kind of like feeling. I don't know if it's just the fact that we've seen so much of these similar lines of dialogue in so many other shows recently. It's this like American style of writing that's so uninspired and unoriginal, trying so hard to be funny, like with these sarcastic quips and like quick comebacks, and they've whacked it into One Piece, which I just don't think One Piece has that kind of sarcastic humor. But then obviously Luffy's line, "I'm sensing a little bit of tension amongst the crew." This became a meme after the teaser was dropped. "I'm sensing a little bit of tension amongst the crew." It's like Luffy would never say that. Like, he's not the type of character to be that in tuned into what's going on around him. He is probably so far removed from reading the tension within a room that while serious bits of dialogue are going on when somebody is explaining their tragic backstory, my man falls asleep. Obviously, Luffy's the type of character to step into an arc and not care about the backstory or histories of the characters. He just decides whose ass he's gonna kick, and he just heads towards that as a goal. But yeah, having Luffy read the room in this like teaser trailer moment already shows like how wrong they've got the characterization of him. And then yeah, Zoro and Nami saying not a crew. Although at the start, Nami was reluctant to have joined the crew, Zoro did in fact come to some sort of an arrangement with Luffy. I mean, at this point, Zoro had accepted Luffy's invitation to join his crew and had even revealed to him that he wants to become the best swordsman in the world, which is something that Luffy was more than happy to support him with. So it feels strange that Zoro's agreeing with Nami in this sarcastic way that we're not a crew. We get a look at Usopp, which in all honesty, don't really have much to say. He looks similar to Usopp, I guess, and they couldn't really have given him that really long nose because it doesn't look realistic. One thing to to note, which I'll touch upon later, is a lot of the costume work that's gone into this series. They've taken a lot of the costumes from either volume covers, chapter covers, original manga color spreads that Oda has drawn for the series, so a great deal of attention has gone into the costume design at least. Then we get a look at Sanji, who at this point in the story is supposed to be 19 years old, but in all honesty, my man looks like he's about to hit 30. We get our first real look at Luffy doing his Gomu Gomu no pistol technique. While the back end of his arm is actually blurred, we don't really get to see it. We do see it in this final big shot here where he punches Alvida. Oh my god, it doesn't look good. The CG, they show it in this really dimly lit scenario. In the anime, Luffy punches her in broad daylight. In the One Piece live action, it happens at night. A lot of these CG shots are really being done in dimly lit scenarios because I think they're trying to cover up a lot of the flaws and the jankiness of the CG. And I remember when I saw this the first time, and when he says pistol and he moves his body, it just made me crack up so much. And I've seen so many reactions to this teaser trailer where this scene in particular, where he's like pistol, it just really is off-putting. Like, is the best way that I can describe it. It's like on the verge of an uncanny valley. It's like a negative response to something that looks real, but it isn't real because they haven't really convincingly conveyed it within the shot. I forget everything else. He hasn't said Gomu Gomu, he said Gum Gum, which again, that's just really cringy to say out loud. And then this line here, all great fighters call out their finishing moves. He says this to Zoro, and then my man disagrees. And I'm not sure if this is supposed to be some sort of a funny foreshadowing or an ironic moment for Zoro, but we know that Zoro always calls out his finishing moves. He's the king of Santoryu when he calls out these several different attacks that are based upon sushi. I'm not sure if they've included this scene here as a type of comedic irony, because Zoro ends up becoming that guy who calls out his signature attack all the time. Yeah, that's the end of the teaser trailer. Now then, of course, we've got the new trailer that was released a couple of days ago. It begins with Goldie Roger being executed. This is Goldie Roger. He just looks like some homeless dude that they've picked up and whacked a costume on. Yeah, I'm not impressed with Roger. And his voice doesn't match that deep bellowing voice that we're so familiar with from the anime. I mean, Roger is supposed to be this iconic figure who inspires a generation to set sail for the seas. But from what we've seen within the trailer, it's not convincing. Like, I don't really see it within this live action Roger. I don't think that he's got what it takes to play such a great character. This trailer again follows on with this trend of dimly lit scenarios with the sun barely setting or rising. While it looks nice with this golden aesthetic, it just really dims out the entire scene. One Piece is like a bright, vibrant adventure story, and it looks so dull and like lifeless within this trailer. I'm gonna talk a lot more about the color grading later on after I finish this like trailer reaction. I really like Zoro's live action look, can't really complain about it. Even his whole personality and demeanor, it perfectly fits the stoic nature of Zoro. I just really like it. Again, Nami looking like she's wearing cosplay, not too convincing. Interestingly, this is young Garp at Roger's execution. One thing that I have an issue with that they're showing a bit more of within this full trailer is that they haven't got the proportions on point. Garp is obviously this really well-built muscular figure, and they've kind of shrunk him down within the live action, and I don't know how I feel about that entirely. I mean, if this has a budget of 100 million, surely they could have done a CG body in this guy. Just made him look a little bit bigger than what he is. This is Garp, who should have been at his prime here, and it just doesn't look that good at all. Then we see Luffy speaking to a news crew, and they're trying to go for this very serious, dramatic tone with the entire live action by incorporating some of these other like goofy comedic moments into the series, but I personally don't think that it blends well into each other. Once again, another dimly lit scene here. We get to see Alvida up close here, and yeah, well, she looks like Alvida. Another nighttime shot of Luffy hopping onto the front of the ship. The entire music, the tone, the lighting, it's all trying to transform One Piece into this dramatic story, and I have a huge issue with this because a lot of these properties that the West adapts, and you had seen it a lot back when dubbing wasn't as accurate for anime, where they tried to market Dragon Ball Z as this uber masculine action cartoon, when in actuality it was a goofy anime based on an even goofier manga, and they had cut the entire first portion of Dragon Ball and skipped Dragon Ball Z so that they could market it as this really cool action cartoon. And I think they're doing a similar kind of thing to One Piece. They're getting rid of a lot of the goofiness, a lot of the light-hearted comedic kind of tone, and I get that it's an adaptation, but it just looks really boring. Like, visually it looks really boring. This entire scene of where Luffy reveals his like first iteration of the Straw Hat's pirate flag is pretty similar to how it unfolds within the anime and the manga. But to be honest with you, I like how it's portrayed within the anime. It just is so much more funnier. Compare these like unimpressed, like kind of surprised reactions from the Straw Hats to these, I don't know, like not as funny, like just generic expressions. It just doesn't translate well into live action. So we start actually seeing shots of all of the group together. We've got Zoro, Luffy, Nami, and Sanji here. We've got this shot of Mary, who in all honesty looks pretty accurate to how he's portrayed within the manga and the anime, and behind him this really nice scene of Captain Kuro with his claws extending out from behind him. Again, one thing to note is that it's very dimly lit. I know that it's happening inside, the candles are lighting the shot, but it just doesn't look very inspiring. It just looks boring. We get another shot of Buggy here, and he looks better than how he looked within the teaser trailer, I'll give it that. Okay, remember what I said from the teaser trailer, that they're showing a lot of their like big CG moments in dimly lit situations. Now, some of the reactions that I've seen on Twitter are trying to praise this as like a positive thing, but this really shows to me that the people behind this show are very unconfident with their work. I mean, why can't they have just shown this properly within well-lit scenario? Like how in the anime and the manga, this confrontation with Buggy happens in the broad daylight. Yeah, I mean, he uses his chop fruit ability literally outside in broad daylight, and in the live action it's happening within a tent, all in this dimly lit scene. I guess it's these kind of changes that they're making to show that it is an adaptation, that it's not one-to-one from the manga, but they're doing it by making these changes which cover up a lot of the weaknesses of the production. It looks well and fine, the CG, okay. A lot of the flaws of it are covered up by the dim lighting. The way that he says chop cannon is just hilarious. Like, it's not like how Buggy sounds. Obviously, fans of the anime are used to the high-pitched screaming by Shigeru Chiba. This is Buggy, who gets kicked in the balls. I hope that this isn't cut from the live action series, but again, I'm not sure if scenes like this are gonna match the tone that they're going for within the live action, because listen to how Buggy sounds. I just can't deal with how out of tone this feels. Like this chop, it just doesn't sound like Buggy at all. Again, you've got more examples of the Straw Hat crew wearing costumes from the various different volume covers. Then we get our first look at some of the fishmen from the Arlong arc. Again, a lot of this quirky, sarcastic humor between the crew, and you've got Sanji saying his first line within the series, and apparently Sanji's British. I do like Zoro's outfit here. He looks exactly like how he looked like during the Arlong Park arc, and yeah, again, Zoro's my highlight from this entire live action One Piece thing. And in all honesty, the cast who played the Straw Hat crew members look fine on screen, they're interacting okay. I mean, aside from the strange written dialogue, they look fine on screen, and they look like they're having fun together, which is the most important part for the Straw Hats. And off screen, they have a lot of good chemistry from the interviews that I've seen. Now, speaking of set design, this looks really nice. Like, I like how the Baratie looks. Again, Going Merry looks like it's been cursed, and I don't like the entire look of that ship and the approach that they've gone with it. I know that they wanted to make it like a realistic looking goat, but instead they've achieved this like really demonic, like horrific kind of creature who looks like he's being tormented. In this scene, we see some of the crew in Kokoyashi village, and to be honest, it looks pretty decent. Aside from Luffy's jacket, I feel like it's a bit too short here, but the rest of the crew look fine. There's this shot of Nami at Bellamy's grave. Now this is the issue that a lot of people had with this trailer, and it's the look of Arlong. He doesn't look good. He looks like an angry Reddit mod who's just appeared at the front door to get his Uber Eats order. He just doesn't have this like menacing feeling or this menacing look that he's supposed to have, that the manga conveys so well and that the anime also adapts from the manga in such a nice manner. So this is the close-up shot of Arlong, like this is the money shot. This is supposed to be a big budget production, but they've made it look like a proper fan film. I'd expect this from like something made for YouTube only. I get that they were trying to go for realistic, but I think it would have made Arlong look a lot more better if they have kind of made a CG model of Arlong instead of this weird fan film realistic look that they've gone for. This is what Arlong is supposed to look like. This like menacing, like really muscular like character. Instead, they've made him look like one of the ugly ducklings. And this is the funniest shot in the entire trailer. Like, I saw this and burst out laughing. He just looks like a joke. I will say that this shot does look good, and some of the strong points of the live action are the set designs. I think it looks quite realistic and well adapted into live action. Just the issue is that it looks really cheap in other aspects, like with a lot of the costume work, with how the characters look in general. Yeah, and I remember seeing this scene in particular, and it's a scene that's very dear to a lot of One Piece fans. They've done it in this dimly lit setting. And this is a scene from the anime that happens in broad daylight, and I know that they're doing this to cover up the flaws with the CG, some of the things that don't really look all that too convincing when the lighting is the best of the best. But what it does is alter the entire mood and the feel of the series. This doesn't feel like One Piece, in my opinion. I mean, Inaki looks fine enough. he makes a convincing Luffy. But then you've got like jokers like this guy who's supposed to be Shanks, but instead he just looks like some dude who's come up at Anime Expo. He's cosplaying as Shanks with this like Mary Poppins hat. It doesn't look intimidating, it doesn't look cool, and it doesn't look like Shanks that I know. And then we've got this first reveal of Mihawk. The sword looks really nice, the outfit as a whole looks okay, but then this close-up shot of the face, and oh man, it looks nowhere near as cool as this design. It's hard to translate this design into reality anyway, but you can see that an attempt was made and the end result is really goofy. And what it ends up doing is it takes away that like intimidating feeling that Mihawk is supposed to exude during these portions of the story. Obviously we haven't really seen it in action, it's just a trailer, but it doesn't look impressive from this trailer alone. And then this shot of them two like clashing, nobody's really around them, there's not a huge spectacle. Like this was supposed to be like this huge kind of moment for Zoro's character. I'm not sure if we're gonna get to see like the crowds around them later. You can see from this shot alone that the clash that happens, it's done with a lot of wire work. It's not really hidden that well, resulting in like the motions feeling very unnatural. A lot of people from the teaser trailer were saying that the teaser doesn't represent the final product or how One Piece is gonna look like, and we've had some improvements. This one scene is an improvement from the teaser. You can see the Sea Beast here. It does look a bit better than what we had seen from the teaser. They've tried to blend the CG Sea King with the other assets on screen. It doesn't look the best again for a series that's supposed to have a $100 million budget. Then we get shots of Sanji fighting, and again the wire work is very obvious here. Now the big money shot of this entire full trailer is Luffy's Gomu Gomu no Gatling gun, which does look better than the pistol that we had seen at the end of the teaser. But Shanks on the other hand does look pretty okay in this scene. He looks better than that other close-up shot, I guess. And the CG here looks fairly convincing. I mean, they had to get this right. But even then, just thinking about how much work is required to adapt a series like One Piece, where the main character is this robot human, so much of the production budget is gonna go on to scenes like this, which have to be done correctly in order not to appear janky and to appear convincing to fans. Because if fans don't like this, I mean, then who are they creating this for? Are they trying to entice new fans into the work of One Piece who are not familiar with the original? But if they then divert too far away from the source material, they risk losing the essence of what made that work great in the first place. I do like the fact that the full trailer shows us a bit more of Luffy's abilities in action. We get a tease at the climactic end of the Arlong Park arc here. This is a scene that could have looked so much better if the color grading was done right, and I'll talk about this in just a second. Now this is the big shot of the Straw Hat crew once they've all come together. This scene here, Luffy's jacket just doesn't look long enough. I just feel like it's too short and it doesn't fit him properly. But aside from that, the other members of the Straw Hat crew look amazing, with Zoro once again being a standout. At the end of the trailer, we see some wanted posters with some Easter eggs here. Like we've got a wanted poster for Cavendish, who's a character who appears fairly later on in the series. Now at this time, Cavendish was an up-and-coming pirate who was actually more famous than Luffy, but when Luffy had started to gain traction, Cavendish was kind of sidelined and his notoriety kind of took a hit after Luffy became up-and-coming. Some other Easter eggs you've got is the wanted poster for Foxy, who again appears way later on in the story. Even Bellamy, who's got a face that you do want to whack, so they've got the casting for Bellamy right, I guess. But yeah, from this scene in particular, it does look like they want to extend this One Piece live action past season 1. I don't know if it's gonna happen. Like honestly, there's a lot to dive into. Now that I've reacted to both the teaser and the full trailer, I want to talk more about this production in detail. The first issue that I have with how One Piece is presented in live action is the terrible color grading. It's given this yellow, lifeless look. I mean, One Piece is a world of color. In live action, they've given it this strange sepia filter. It's supposed to be vibrant, not this like ugly yellow. People are calling it like this Mexican Breaking Bad filter. Look at how it looks within the trailer and look at what happens when you remove this yellow filter. I mean, this looks more vibrant, more engaging. I would love to watch this. I mean, I wouldn't have as much of an issue as I do with the series if it just didn't have that stupid filter. But I feel like they've applied this yellow filter, they've dimly lit a lot of the scenes because they're trying to cover up for a lot of the weaknesses with the CG, the wire work, and other weak areas of the production. I mean, look at this scene here as well of the Baratie with the Going Merry, and look at how it's shown within the trailer. I just feel like the right coloring would have done wonders for the show. I can't get over how much better it looks by removing this yellow filter. Another issue that I'd spoken about while reacting to the teaser was these like sarcastic, quippy remarks, which is a specific type of humor that I think audience are getting really sick of. And it's common in action movies like the MCU movies, and it's just an example of very lazy writing, where they don't really want to give a lot of comedic relief to one particular character, which helps to differentiate that character as the comedic relief, which is usually like Luffy, Usopp, and Chopper, but instead they give a lot of these sarcastic, quippy remarks to all of the characters. The thing with a lot of anime and manga is that they don't do sarcastic humor or these sarcastic quips. Like when both Zoro and Nami said not a crew in this like sarcastic way, which straight away I personally feel like isn't faithful to how the characters are portrayed within the original work. A lot of these like real cringy kind of bits are still being seeped into the work, despite the fact that the showrunner is really passionate about One Piece and Oda is involved with the story. I'm gonna touch upon this in a second, because I want to talk about every single comment that Oda has made regarding this live action, but if they were to have translated the humor and the comedic relief from the manga, then they would have found that the humor within the One Piece manga is very blatant, direct, there's a lot of physical comedy, and Japanese humor in general involves characters being like horrified by how crazy another individual is. I want to talk about the worst part of the full trailer, and it's Arlong, with his like little short shots, this big like oversized sword and this small physical stature. This is supposed to be like the big bad of this like entire season of the One Piece live action. This is who we're building up to. This neither looks intimidating nor imposing. People are giving like these reactions and they're so afraid to say that it just looks bad. They're saying, oh well, it doesn't look that bad, or it doesn't look perfect. Just say it looks bad. Like, this isn't Arlong. This is somebody who's coming to school on World Book Day pretending to be Arlong. I did say earlier I wanted them to translate like the goofy comedic side of One Piece into the live action, but I didn't mean by like taking tanks like Arlong and like shrinking them down into these really memeable, corny versions of who they are. Again, this sentiment is shared by several other people on Twitter, with this other user saying that he should have been more buff, but what else can you expect from a live action? And some people even saying that it should be as good as Dragon Ball Evolution. Now, I did mention earlier that a lot of the costume design has been inspired by some of the color spreads that Oda has drawn, especially for the volume covers, the manga color spreads, and the artwork that's featured from the characters within several different One Piece art books. Now, while it's all well and fine having the characters wear costumes from like these really obscure pieces of art, it doesn't mean that it's going to translate into the series being good overall. It may look really polished, but if it's still a turd, then it just is a polished turd at the end of the day. And a similar kind of thing did happen with the Cowboy Bebop live action. The Cowboy Bebop live action was created by the same studio that's creating the One Piece live action. I'm gonna talk about that in just a second. But before that, let's speak about all of Oda's comments on this entire One Piece live action. Oda's released several statements regarding the Netflix adaptation of One Piece, and here's one of the first ones that he has said. So he says that he knows that he announced the production of the One Piece live action back in 2017, but things have taken time and preparation has been slowly progressing behind the scenes, and it seems that he can finally make the announcement that Netflix, the world's largest streaming entertainment service, will be lending us their tremendous production support, and they're going to be involved with the One Piece live action. So he says, how far will the story progress over the 10 episodes of season 1? Who will be cast? Please be patient and wait a little longer and stay tuned. So apparently it was supposed to be 10 episodes initially, but instead it's ended up being 8 episodes. And if you note, Matt Owens, one of the screenwriters for the show that I'm going to be talking about in just a sec, was actually the writer for 3 of the episodes. The other 5 were written by other writers, and I don't know how familiar they are with One Piece. At the time of this being released, it was predicted that the budget for each episode would be about 10 million per episode. This would have meant that the series was going to have a budget of 100 million spread over 10 episodes. But upon further research, we've learned that the budget of the One Piece Netflix adaptation is around 18 million per episode, so a total budget of $144 million for its first season, which is one of the most expensive series ever created. I mean, to give it some sort of a reference, Game of Thrones or The Mandalorian had a budget of about 15 million per episode, so it's getting onto that kind of level of quality. So this is why I'm so critical of the stuff that we have seen within the trailer, because if they're spending this much money, then it needs to adhere to somewhat of a standard. Interestingly, Tomorrow Studios had spent about $6 or $7 million per episode of Cowboy Bebop, so it seems as though this is triple the budget of Cowboy Bebop. We had a follow-up comment from Oda who says that he's been working with Tomorrow Studios and Netflix for quite some time now. Even though they understand each of the characters, they obviously come from very different cultures, so when it comes to entertainment, they have different codes, skill sets, and aims. Sometimes it could be frustrating for both sides, and it felt like we're all trying to get to the same place, so how come we're not on the same wavelength? There was even a time when he had thought that is a foreign production even possible for One Piece? Now, this might seem like it's coming out of nowhere, but we've been hard at work this entire time, and now each and every entity involved is working in sync, and we're finally here. Apparently Oda here is hinting at issues with Tomorrow Studios, maybe issues that weren't resolved with the Cowboy Bebop production, but apparently Oda was able to resolve here for One Piece. So he says, considering my expected lifespan, I believe this is the last chance to bring One Piece to an entire world. If they're going to do it, then he wants to be able to supervise things while he is still active. Now this is why he's agreed to do a live action adaptation of One Piece back in 2016. 2016. So he wants the One Piece legacy to kind of be remembered as a universal entity, not just something that's limited to like anime and manga, something that all audiences are receptive to, which in general is a live action big budget production. So he says that since then, Netflix has committed enormous resources to the production of One Piece. It was announced that the show will launch in 2023, but they've promised that they're not going to launch until Oda is satisfied. Now, a lot of supporters for the One Piece live action are quoting this line in particular. So he says that the entire cast and crew spanning various countries are brimming with love for One Piece. They're burning with passion, and he's reminded everyone involved that One Piece live action needs to be fun. He says that they are in the final process right now of wrapping up all of the 8 episodes, so they'll be setting sail very soon. So the difference between the first and the second statement from Oda is that the episode count has been cut by 2. Now, I don't know if this is because they wanted to increase the budget per episode, so they had to reduce the number overall, or if they were able to somehow fit all of the story of the East Blue Saga into 8 1-hour episodes instead of 10. Maybe it dragged on too much in 10, but I feel like, I don't know, the longer the better it would have been. Maybe things changed because of the poor reception from the Cowboy Bebop live action. The latest statement by Oda was released alongside the full trailer for the One Piece live action. So he says that the teaser and the trailer are now out, and the launch date for the show itself is set for August 31st. And he says this, that there were no compromises on this show. Says that the festivities have already begun. It's already fun seeing the flurry of reactions after each release of information, and the very fact that adapting One Piece into live action has taken over 7 years. He speaks about how this world will be brought to life, and stating that there was so much that had went into it, all of the efforts by the actors, the building of the world and the costumes, presenting things in a way that can only be done in live action. In addition to this, the dialogue and the entire process of so many people putting their heads together was something that Oda had enjoyed and describes it to be a festivity of sorts. So this is very important because Oda addresses the critics of the One Piece live action here, as he says that after the launch, he is sure that he'll hear about some people pointing out how this character is missing, or that scene is omitted from the live action, or this bit is different from the manga. But Oda states that he knows that these comments are coming from a place of love, so he intends to even accept comments like that. Now, he is aware that the story will span 8 episodes and it will take us all the way through to you know where, which of course is Luffy and the crew each stating their dreams and then resolving to go to the Grand Line, which is right at the end of the East Blue Saga. Speaking more on the production, Oda says that even after the shooting was over, there were several scenes that the production agreed to reshoot because he had felt that they weren't good enough to put into the world. Now, on the other hand, there were some lines that he had felt didn't feel like Luffy on paper, but when he had seen the filmed scenes, he had stated that it works when it's Inaki performing it as Luffy. As a matter of fact, it works great. Now, of course, Inaki is the actor who plays Luffy, so there were so many things that had to be done to keep things from looking too unnatural in live action. And from my reaction to the trailer and the teaser, you can see that some of the things that they had done was to dim the lighting of some of the scenes, make sure instead of having some events happen during the daylight that happened at nighttime instead. This is so that some of the scenes didn't look too unnatural when adapted into live action. So the producers and the crew are pros at live action, and frankly, they're One Piece superfans. Oda says that the more knowledgeable you are about One Piece, the more that you're likely to notice the love that has been poured into the live action series. Of course, we've noticed some of the Easter eggs inside the teaser and the trailer, with a lot of the costume changes, with some of the things that they've included in the background, like the different wanted posters from characters who appear way later on in the story. So apparently, it was in June of 2023 when Oda had made the final decision to go ahead and launch the Netflix One Piece live action. He says that his editor, who had worked so hard on this, had actually cried as he had stated that it was such a long journey. Well, of course, if it's been 2017 to now, it has been so many years, and Oda at least has tried to ensure that they're putting out a good product at least. He does say this though, despite them having worked really hard on something, it doesn't mean that it's going to be successful. Oda's own personal beliefs about this production is that he loves the production team and the cast, and he cannot wait for them to get the acclaim that they deserve from everyone around the world. And if by chance people have some gripes, then he'll be there to receive those comments too. So Oda seems to be okay with people having an issue with the live action, so he ends by saying, now whatever feelings you choose to harbor in the meantime is still going to be 1 month until the live action drops, so please have some tea and wait. Oda has gone back and drawn this manga spread based upon the East Blue Saga. We see a lot of iconic characters here: Buggy, Kuro, Mihawk, Arlong, as well as Garp, Kobe and Shanks in the background, and of course in the center you've got the main Straw Hats. And at the bottom, of course, Oda has written Tomorrow Studio collaborating with Netflix to bring to everyone the One Piece live action. If anything, this artwork alone cements the fact that Oda has been involved with the production to some extent, and from his comments it is obvious that he has given his blessing to the end product. Now the only thing that I can really compare this to is Akira Toriyama's sentiments towards Dragon Ball Evolution at the time that that was coming out and his feelings after it had released. So Toriyama, upon the release of Dragon Ball Evolution, has stated that as the original creator, he had a feeling of surprise upon seeing the screenplay and the character designs, but the director, all the actors and the staff and the rest are nothing but ultra high caliber people. This is similar to what Oda has said, that all of the staff and everybody who's worked on the One Piece live action are really talented people. Toriyama goes on to state that maybe the right way for me and all of the fans to appreciate this movie is to treat it as a new Dragon Ball from a different dimension. So this was him kind of trying to stay positive about it, even though he's not really too happy with it. So he goes on to say that perhaps this might become a great masterpiece of power and he looks forward to it. So the comments here are not very confident from Toriyama, and they are similar to this line from Oda here, that even if they have worked hard on something, it doesn't guarantee success. You have to remember that mangaka are a part of a production machine that constantly churns out media on a given series, and it's kind of up to Shueisha whether if they want to do a live action or not, and the creators of the series have to get on board with it. We know that Oda had stated that he had put off doing a live action for such a long time, but we don't know how much of this was pushed on by Shueisha, because it's in their best interest to create a live action that resonates with everybody across the world, because ultimately it promotes the sales of the manga and it helps Shueisha's bottom lining at the end of the day. I mean, we don't know if Toriyama had actually agreed to Dragon Ball being adapted into live action. We know that he wasn't as attached to Dragon Ball as Oda is to One Piece, so there is that difference, to be honest. Now, Toriyama's comments after the release of Dragon Ball Evolution were quite telling. So the first comment that I had spoken about was released in 2009, and these comments here were made in 2013 while Toriyama was promoting Battle of Gods. He had stated that at the time of the Hollywood movie, the live action Dragon Ball, the script had too little of a grasp on the world and its characteristics, and on top of that, it had conventional content that he couldn't find interesting. So Toriyama had in fact cautioned the people at Fox, and he had suggested some changes, but in spite of this, Fox Studios seemed to have a strange confidence in their work and they didn't really listen to Toriyama, and what had resulted in the end was a movie that he couldn't really call Dragon Ball, and it didn't live up to his expectations. So in response to this, Toriyama had kind of wanted to come back to Dragon Ball, and he wanted to show it by creating a story that only the creator could have drawn, and this is what had resulted in the release of Battle of Gods. I want to now turn the attention towards the showrunner of the One Piece live action called Matt Owens. So the One Piece live action has in fact been developed by two individuals, Matt Owens and Steven Maeda. Now we know that they have quite a social media following and they've been promoting the show in their own separate ways, with Matt Owens actually getting involved with some One Piece content creators. He had in fact appeared on the Reverie and had debated One Piece with several One Piece content creators for about 10 hours or so. So it's clearly developed by people who have a passion for the One Piece series. Now this post here by Bubbly Anteater on the One Piece Reddit highlights a bit more information about the One Piece live action, with some bits of backstory and as well as some receipts which reveal how the One Piece live action had come to be and why in general fans of One Piece need to be a bit more positive about this live action, because apparently it's not going to be like some of the other works that we have seen. So similar to some of the comments that we had read from Oda, that he was approached by a lot of individuals with big checks who had wanted to adapt One Piece to live action, but Oda had in fact declined all of them because he had no trust in any of them. Oda's the type of individual who is willing to literally die for One Piece, willing to set aside his health and everything just so that the story can reach its conclusion. This is the kind of commitment that he has towards it. So apparently Tomorrow Studios had bought the rights to One Piece. For some context, Tomorrow Studios is a partnership between ITV Studios along with Marty Adelstein, who is the CEO of Tomorrow Studios. In the past have created several works like Snowpiercer, which in itself was a TV adaptation of a film by the same name, and most notably what's relevant to us is that they had adapted the Cowboy Bebop anime series in November of 2021, and now of course they are adapting One Piece. What's important here to note is that the live action rights were bought by Tomorrow Studios, and Matt Owens of course is one of two producers who had convinced Tomorrow Studios that One Piece has a high chance of failing, but if it's going to fail then he should be the one to do it, as no one in this industry is more passionate about One Piece than him. So this is setting the stage as to who is behind the One Piece live action. He had even prepared a pitch to Oda, but Oda wasn't 100% convinced, but as courtesy they had went out for a meal following the pitch, and in this meal Matt had opened up to Oda about why he loves One Piece so much, stating that he he was in a very low place when he had found One Piece. And then he reveals about how One Piece has heavy themes of relations with family and community, and then going on to reveal that One Piece had 100% saved his life. Then Oda responded with these comments by saying that he has 100% faith in him, and he had let Matt Owens begin producing One Piece, and he had then given permission to Matt Owens to begin creating One Piece with his assistants. Following this, we discuss how involved Oda is with the production of the One Piece live action. Well, he is involved in making the scripts, correcting anything that he doesn't like, and he was an integral part of choosing the cast with strict guidelines on how they are picked, which is why you are able to kind of distinguish who each actor is playing without even seeing the character up close. So hopefully by just seeing the silhouette of the character, you can tell who it is. So people who are excited about the One Piece live action speak about the great chemistry that the Straw Hats have on screen and off screen. During some of the Netflix events that have promoted the One Piece live action, where the cast who play the Straw Hats have come on stage, they exude a lot of energy and they seem to really get along with each other. I think the confidence with the One Piece live action is that Oda is really involved with the production, which is something that other live action series like Cowboy Bebop, Death Note, Dragon Ball can't really say. So even this poster on Reddit believes that the CGI isn't perfect, but he then goes on to say that by creating a Sea King or by making a character stretch, it's always going to look uncanny, because it's extremely hard to film this and to get it right in CGI. Towards the end of this post, there are comments made about really good live action anime productions like Rurouni Kenshin, Alice in Borderlands, Alita Battle Angel, and the Japanese produced Death Note movies that were released in 2006 and 2007. Now I've seen all of these that have been mentioned and I have enjoyed them for what they are, especially the original Death Note movies. I know they had veered away from the story of the Death Note manga, but I appreciated them for what they are. And growing up, I really loved Tatsuya Fujiwara's portrayal of Light within those Death Note movies. So I think this point is being made just to show that anime in live action can be done if it has the right people behind it. So now I want to have a look at what the actual showrunner Matt Owens has to say about the One Piece live action in his own words.
The Hawaiian shirt that Luffy is wearing when he's touching the Mary in your favorite shot, Randy, it's the cover of either volume 10 or 11. My favorite shot from the trailer is Luffy sitting in his seat. There's a color walk from Syrup Village of Luffy wearing a pair of green overalls.
So this adds on to my point where even if it looks good, even if they're paying so much attention to detail, all of this in general is just surface level stuff. I love that this is how they're demonstrating passion within the production, and it's an easy way to prove that the people behind it are actually familiar with the source material, and I think this has won a lot of One Piece fans over. But again, the proof will be in the pudding when the actual season drops on August 31st.
He, Oda, is the best. Everything. I get to meet him and talk with him. He is such a legend. Like I said, I'm just excited for people to see it. So if you see stuff and you don't like it, it's okay. That's fine. But I do think people are going to dig it and that people are going to see that a lot of love went into it. I think people are going to understand some of the changes, some things that are tweaked, but it's authentic. It's close to the source material. I think people will appreciate it.
So this is Matt admitting that not everybody is going to like this One Piece live action. Some compromises had to be made, despite Oda earlier saying that no compromises were done. But you have to understand that there would have had to be some sort of compromise in order to squeeze the story into 8 episodes, as well as for the entire production to fit within the allocated budget, which despite it being really high, I don't think it was enough to really translate everything from the manga onto a live action.
5 Straw Hats are on screen together. It's a really fun, really great scene, and then I will say, Help Me. About Help Me in the live action, they crushed it. They crushed it.
So Matt Owens is speaking about the scene where Nami pleads with Luffy to help her, as he states that they had nailed it within the live action. Now this is a scene that had actually won me over as a fan of One Piece. Up until that point I was kind of following it along, waiting for it to get good, but when I had seen that scene in particular during the Oolong Park arc, I remember feeling goosebumps and falling in love with the story and wanting to see the end to all of these characters' respective journeys. So it is reassuring to hear the showrunner state that they have gotten that scene right. Now despite all of this, I want to look at the history of Tomorrow Studios. So the CEO is Marty Adelstein, and he has a history of over 30 years as an agent within Hollywood, and he was famous for actually having founded Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson and being his agent during his early years. So he is in fact the executive producer of the live action One Piece TV adaptation, and he was also the executive producer of the live action TV adaptation of Cowboy Bebop. Now when the Cowboy Bebop live action was initially being promoted, it was said that it was going to be an expansion to the actual TV anime. It was going to add material onto the anime and to expand its lore. So it's not going to be a replacement of the anime, but it's going to be a work that's in addition to it. And what is really fascinating is that they had credited Shinichiro Watanabe, the original creator of Cowboy Bebop, as apparently a consultant to the live action adaptation. And I remember that people were really positive about this Cowboy Bebop adaptation because Watanabe apparently was involved with it. Now, while on paper it looked okay, like Spike's outfit looked fine, the trailers looked nice visually, but in terms of story, it really was a big letdown. It just veered too much away from the original source material. And this is the concern that I have for the One Piece live action adaptation. So similar to Akira Toriyama, Watanabe had recently shared his thoughts on the Netflix adaptation of Cowboy Bebop in an interview with Forbes magazine. He had stated for the new Netflix live action adaptation, they had sent him a video to review and to check, and it had started with a scene in a casino, which had made it very tough for him to continue. Now, he had stopped there and he had only saw the opening scene, and it was clearly not Cowboy Bebop to him, and he had realized at that point that if he wasn't involved, then it would not be Cowboy Bebop. So from Watanabe's comments, it seems as though he wasn't involved with the production of the live action Cowboy Bebop at all, with him even expressing some sort of regret that he wasn't involved with it and maybe he should have been. But in the end, he finishes off by saying that now at least the value of the original anime is brought a bit more higher, to be honest. People comparing the Cowboy Bebop live action to the One Piece live action, they say that the difference is that Oda is actually involved in the production, with one user commenting saying that actually Watanabe was involved with Cowboy Bebop in the beginning, but Tomorrow Studios had ended up ghosting him, and apparently it's a matter of time before they do this to Oda too. There's another comment here from a user saying that Tomorrow Studios had bluffed about the Cowboy Bebop live action, initially saying that Watanabe was involved when in fact he really wasn't. Then there's this excerpt from the making of Cowboy Bebop live action, which kind of explains the selection process for Tomorrow Studios having picked Cowboy Bebop for live action adaptation. So in the Forbes article, Watanabe said that this wasn't his Cowboy Bebop, but he had appreciated the cast and the crew of the series so much, and that a solid attempt was made at least. But apparently the producers of Tomorrow Studios had picked Cowboy Bebop because the name sounded cool, but they didn't understand anything about it in general. Now, the excerpt from this book says that Tomorrow Studios had hired consultants to look at potential anime and manga subjects in Japan and Korea, and they had turned up a number of possibilities for adaptation. So one of the individuals had approached the producers and asked what they think about Cowboy Bebop, and they responded nothing but it's the best title that he has ever heard in his life. So Tomorrow Studios had literally picked Cowboy Bebop because it sounded cool as a name. So this is kind of the mindset of the CEO Marty Adelstein. Now, we've got a bit of positivity coming from the showrunner Matt Owens, who reassures fans via his communications with One Piece content creators that the show is going to be faithful to Oda, that it's had Oda involved. His comments are also reassuring, but in the end, we're not going to really know the full story until August 31st. I mean, I've tried to deep dive into this as much as possible. I've reacted to the teaser, I've reacted to the full trailer, I've spoken about Oda's comments, I've spoken about Matt Owens, I've discussed my positives about the One Piece live action, as well as the negatives that I have, which is mostly the poor CGI, the obvious wire work, terrible color grading, and some of the disagreements that I have with the dialogue, and how some characters just look really goofy like Arlong. But I think this video has gone on long enough. Now I want to hand over the discussion to all of you. What do you guys think about the One Piece Netflix live action adaptation? I actually do have my very own One Piece channel where I review all of the latest chapters, give my thoughts on some power scaling, as well as explaining some events from the manga. So definitely do check out my dedicated One Piece channel if you're interested in more of my thoughts and opinions on the series. I am genuinely really passionate about the series, and this is why I've gone to great lengths to kind of discuss this live action adaptation, share my thoughts on it, and hopefully I've proven to you that I'm not just hating on it for the sake of hating on it. But yeah, I'd love to know all of your thoughts, so definitely continue the discussion in the comments. And lastly, thanks for making it to the end of this video, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. If you enjoy my content, then you can support my channel through Patreon for as little as $1 a month, or even through YouTube by becoming a channel member. You will gain access to exclusive channel perks and a Discord server which I frequently use. So become a member of my Zero Division and be the first to know about my upcoming videos. And once again, thank you for sticking around till the end of the video, and whatever you contribute will mean a lot to me.